Welcome to our show, humans, in the camera. And thank you for coming here today. This is really cool.
It's my pleasure. How about you?
It's wonderful to be here on this beautiful sunny day.
Yeah, it's gorgeous.
Middle of the winter, middle
It's
of the
freezing
pandemic.
out there. Don't make me go outside, please.
You're cut off. Get out. But yeah, we're here to talk about music and life, and I figured I'd start with when did you learn to play music?
Is that addressed to me?
Maybe start with you,
Okay.
Rachel, and then move to Connie.
Okay. When did I learn to start to play music? You know, you sent me some questions in advance, and it kind of scared me a bit. I did think about it a lot, and a lot of it is lost in the sands of time because I've reached a very advanced age, and I started when I was very young. I was a kid, played in the school orchestra for a couple of years, just grade school, played cello, and then basically my life became very chaotic, and I started to basically live on the street, and I hitchhiked to Western Canada, Vancouver, and I hung out with blues musicians. And when I said, I used to play the cello when I was a little kid, they said, well, you should play bass. So I made it back to New York when I was living with my grandparents, and my grandfather bought me an electric bass in 1975.
Oh my God.
So not everyone's grandfather would do that, right?
No.
In 1975, it's like, yeah, let's go to the Ossining Music Center and I'll buy you this bass for $65.
Whoa.
A Dan Electro short scale bass for any bass enthusiasts out there. And basically I just played. I had 2 Mel Bay for bass books. So I like to say I'm a graduate of the Mel Bay School of Bass, which is, pretty accessible to everyone. And so over the years, I went back to Vancouver and I played in punk bands or post-punk bands, really. I never really played in punk bands, but I played in like the more post-punk, kind of more art rock, kind of more creative, funkier stuff, more political. And I also played in bar bands.
Cool.
You know, and
Very
that's
cool.
kind of that's the beginning of the story.
Mm-hmm.
And after I lived in Vancouver for 10 years, I played in quite a few bands there, and I decided that I didn't want to live in Vancouver anymore because I think for me, I just attracted a little too much attention, and I felt a bit like I'm kind of weird. Back at that time, it was a little harder to be kind of queer and actually Jewish. Like being in Vancouver, that was a little weird too. So I was kind of stuck out.
Okay.
And so with my music, it was a little harder for me to integrate and get gigs, just regular old gigs. Just kind of what I like to do. I just like to do regular old gigs,
Yeah.
like anything. I don't care, you know. And so I moved here. We moved here together.
We moved here together.
Yes, that's true.
You're right.
So I'll let you speak to what happened to you after. What happened to you? What happened to you? Like, you used to be a nice
lot
person.
of things happened to me, but as far as like how I learned to play music, well, I had probably the opposite background as Rachel, a completely stable home life in suburban Vancouver, where I took piano lessons as a kid, and then as a bored kid at my parents' friend's house after church on Sundays, I would go up to the bedroom of the teenage kids who had left home and pick up the guitar that was left behind. And I learned how to play guitar from a book called 101 Pop Tunes. And being left-handed, the book was written for right-handed people. So I would flip the guitar over and try and make sense of these chord diagrams and crazy songs like your grandparents would sing, like Silver Threads Among the Gold or something. None of it made any sense, but I realized at a very early age that I was very interested in playing the guitar and music in general. It was just a great escape and a great way to spend time by myself and delve into something that I knew very little about and was very interested in, and could spend hours keeping myself busy playing music.
Like today.
Well, not yet.
Well, you still spend hours. Keeping busy playing music.
You're right, yeah. So when I was in my 20s, I lived on one of the Gulf Islands for years and then moved back to Vancouver and ended up in a communal house with a bunch of kind of hippie punk type people. And
Cool.
there was a drum set in the basement. It actually belonged to people from the Young Canadians. The Young Canadians, or the K-Tels at the time, were practicing in the basement. And when no one was home, I'd go down there and put on some music and play along. And so I taught myself drums at that time, and then got involved with Rachel in a band called the Moral Lepers. And Rachel played bass, I played drums. And we had a good time there in the 80s, playing lots of clubs and hanging out in the scene, and actually came to Toronto for a gig and
Several gigs.
Several
Played the
gigs
Cameron in
and-
1982.
What?
was it 82?
It was 82.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
Yeah, we were invited
We played the
to
Rivoli.
we were invited to Toronto by Clive Robertson, who put on an event for women's music bands, feminists. He was part of the Parallel Gallery YYZ, I guess.
Fuse Magazine. He'd be
Fuse
known for the
Magazine. Oh, that's right, Fuse
brothers, yeah.
Magazine. So we came to Toronto. We played a couple of gigs at the I can't remember where, but we kind of ventured into the Cameron House at the time, which was really happening in the 80s, and they were totally friendly and open. Oh, if you ever want to play, you can play here. And so I guess I'm rambling a bit, but I'm just
No.
thinking of those.
We went to New York on
We
that
also,
trip,
yeah,
too.
we did. We drove to New York and we played at the Moral Lepers played at a club called 8BC and another one called the Pyramid Club. It was a very interesting time in New York because it was really rough. There was tons of street people. This club, 8BC, was actually on 8th between B and C, and there was nothing down there, really nothing. To get into the club, they'd have this big iron door and open up a little
God, no way.
window, and oh, you look okay, we'll let you in. And our friend came to our show, and she took a taxi, but the cab wouldn't even drive down there. The cab let her off and made her walk the last the last few blocks. It was like, no, we're not driving down there. And that was really interesting.
Whoa.
Yeah.
That is so interesting. That's
We
such...
went back. Well, I went back quite a few times and played in New York, actually, with the Animal Slaves, which is a band I played in for years.
So you're from New York?
I am from New York, actually, but distantly at this point. I've lived
Cool.
in Canada for most of my life.
Neat. What brought you to Canada?
A series of random circumstances, namely that my stepfather was a translator. He was from Brazil, and he got a job in Detroit in 1970, and he didn't want to live in Detroit. So he moved to Windsor. Like, I guess you could just say, oh, excuse me, I'm not a axe murderer. Can I live in Canada now with my entire family? And, okay, here's your social insurance number, mister, and here's for your children. And I was the only one that stayed. Everyone else went back to the States. So
Serendipitous that
yeah,
way.
very much so, yeah.
You started with the electric bass, and
Yeah.
did you find there was something about the sound it made that jumped out at you?
Good question. I guess I played cello previous to that,
Yeah.
so it seemed accessible. It seemed like
Right.
something I could do.
Right.
Yeah, I like bass. Great instrument. And I played electric bass for 75, 85, 95, about 25 years, and then I basically kind of got fired from a band because I didn't play upright.
Really?
And then, like typical bass player, I'm like, angry. I could do that. I could get it upright. So I got it upright and I learned to play it at that point.
The band was like, nah, if you can't do this, you're out.
Basic, like in 25 words or less, that, people have a right to their preferences, whatever. And so that was what they wanted. I played electric bass in Swamperella for a couple of years. Swamperella is a Cajun and Zydeco band that I still play in. Conny plays in there too. And then it was like the leader was like, I really, really want an upright bass. I want it to be more acoustic. So that was fine for a few years. I played triangle instead. Yeah. And I learned how to play upright. And then the bass player split. He moved to Germany. And so I got my gig back.
And you're like, yeah, I got this now.
Well, I was like, let me do it. I want to do it. Please, please. I begged. I cried a little.
Yeah, that was it was an
Worked
interesting.
out.
Swamperella is a great band. We still play. The
Yeah, we
band's
played
been
here.
together for over 20 years. We've played here at Drom. We're sort of not doing a lot right now, but
Where? No.
well, I got the guitar spot in that band by default as well. A friend of ours kept trying to get me and Susie, the leader of the band, Susie Schlanger, to meet, and I finally met Susie, and she said, "Oh yeah, well I'm doing this I'm doing this gig with someone from out of town, and I need a guitar player to play one set because the guitar player I have only has time to do the other set." And I said, "Well, I sort of play some guitar. I think I might be able to do that." And so we got together. I got the music, I studied the music and played the set. And, here we are 25 years later of Swamperella,
That
me
is,
being the rhythm guitar player.
that's really fucking
And
cool.
yeah, I really love that music. I first encountered it sort of by accident in a cassette tape that my landlady was selling at a garage sale. It was either Beausoleil or the Balfour Brothers, and I kind of pulled it out and looked at it and put it on and listened to it, and it just struck this incredible chord of, yes, I want this. And then I really delved into Cajun music for many years and playing it, learning it, reading about it, going to Louisiana, meeting people, going to jam sessions, and it became a real passion, and it's still a passion. And I kind of miss it now with this whole COVID thing, not being able to get together with the band and play. So spent a lot more time just sitting around the house practicing,
waiting to be free.
waiting for a.
Is there something about Cajun music that really speaks to you?
It's extremely heartfelt. It's like reggae is very heartfelt music. You can, the topics can be sad about loss and homelessness or prison or, political oppression or poverty, and yet there's such joy the way the music is expressed by the players and the singers, and it just really speaks to me, and I love playing it. I love reggae too, for that matter. Spent quite a few years playing drums in a world beat band, and we played reggae and African music, and it was a fantastic time.
Do you find there different styles of music have a different way of expressing themselves to you? And do you find you're a different player when you're playing different styles?
Good question.
I'm one of those. I'm a musician that likes to be a little bit behind the scenes. I'm not comfortable being the front person or speaking with the, addressing the audience, or, I like being in the rhythm section. I'm comfortable. I like being in the foundation and being sort of having some drive underneath it all, and being supportive and trying to listen to the essence of the music and go, well, how can I really make this happen? You know, what's my part in this? And that's how I relate to myself as a musician. And I don't know.
Well, there's your problem. No, just kidding. No, that's perfectly healthy, reasonable kind of basic concept for playing music. Yeah.
Mm.
It's like a philosophy you have in a sense of this is how you hold yourself in the world, and then you find yourself expressing yourself musically because that inhabits your soul, and you want to be setting a foundation so others can express themselves.
Yeah, it feels good to me. I feel like, in a way, it's perhaps maybe a little bit underrated. Like people look at the rhythm guitar players and you know, rhythm section is sometimes being underrated, and it's the soloists that get all the limelight and, oh, wow, I can't believe how fast that guy's playing or whatever. But I'm comfortable doing that, and I like it, and I enjoy it.
And because you play a lot of instruments and you play a lot of instruments
do.
in general, are there specific instruments that you really, really gravitate towards? Or has that changed over the years?
That's a good question. You know, for me, I played just played bass for the longest time, like forever, man. Like till, I don't know, probably 10 or 12 years ago. I mean, that sounds like a long time ago, maybe, but if you consider that I've been playing music since 1975, and I just played bass till maybe 2010 or something. I mean, I started playing accordion, I started playing fiddle, and I started playing guitar kind of in that period of time.
What pushed you to try other instruments?
Well, I was playing in a klezmer band, and the band ended. And I'm like, well, I still want to play klezmer, but I can't just stand here and like play on the bass. That, you know. So I decided I'd teach myself accordion, which was extremely difficult and not recommended. Do not teach yourself to play the accordion. Get somebody to show you how. It's better to not reinvent the wheel. As far as guitar, like guitar is the ultimate instrument. Actually, it's really what I'm the most into right now. Is I'm into playing guitar because I love Django. I love the Hot Club of France, that style of music, and I'm kind of obsessed with that really at the moment. And I also play old time fiddle because Conny got really into old time music, and so I just by proximity I'm really into it too.
I wanted to play an instrument that I could take camping or you know, travel with or sit in the kitchen, and that didn't include a drum set. So, and I was visiting a friend out west, and he kind of said, "Here, would you like this mandolin?" And I went, "Okay." And so I received a mandolin as a gift and started working on playing that. And then when I was here, I bumped into some people here and there at the Transac or whatever that were involved with playing Appalachian old-time music, and I really liked it. So I started learning how to play that. And I also, because like Rachel and I are life partners as well as music partners, we can go anywhere from being supportive to competitive to being... And I went, I want to do something that Rachel's not doing.
Oh, nice.
So I think I'll learn how to play the mandolin, old-time music. And so I started doing that. And then actually Rachel was playing in a band called Mood Swing, and there was a fiddler in the band who was selling this fiddle, and he kept pestering you to buy this fiddle and sending you emails, and you weren't going there. And so I said, well, I'll buy the damn fiddle. And so I bought it and went, I can't play this. Here, you play it.
Start fiddling.
And so then that's how Rachel got involved in old time. And we both actually spent a lot of time doing that.
True.
And
Yeah.
it's great fun. It's a wonderful community here in Toronto, as well as, in the U.S. where it comes from, many states, and it's great.
But you do raise something interesting that I think a couple other people have touched on as well, which is a tension between tradition and experimentation in music, where you have traditional ways of expressing a sound, and you can also experiment. Like, I'll start with you. How has your journey through tradition and experimentation been? Because you'll have to learn things traditionally at some point in theory, but then you have your own way of expressing as well, right?
I'm a traditionalist,
Yeah.
and I'm not a strong improviser. I love traditional music. I love folk music, klezmer music, whatever. It's like I
What
don't.
about your days in the punk scene, man? Drumming, and Tin Twist, and the Work Party, and
Yeah.
like, what about that? Like, how did you kind of quantify your self-expression in that realm? And that wasn't
That's a great
traditional. That
question.
was
That's a great
really
question.
like
Yeah.
pretty outside, actually.
Yeah, I guess so. I guess well, I sort of identify more when you talk about improvisation and experimenting with, jazz, and I'm not really a jazz player, but I think as far as my own personal experience with improvisation or expressing myself has been my limitations or lack of limitations and unconventional approach, being left-handed and playing right-handed instruments, and just inspiration. You hear something and you respond. You respond to what you hear, and it becomes a dialogue with other musicians. Create a dialogue. A little more difficult, I'd say, to do on my own. But I like the band format of having a conversation with musicians.
Let me bring to your mind the fact that you played in a West African drum and dance ensemble for 12 years, and you brought a lot of that information to the drum set when you played world music with Mother Tongue. Did you forget about that, Connie?
Well, talk
How could you have
about
forgotten?
traditional. It's like that's the sum of its parts being, an ensemble of 10 or 15 people each playing a little part that made an incredible sum. So, but it's true. I've had a lot of different influences.
You should listen to the Moral Leopards. The drumming on that is spectacular. It's really, really good, and it's really, really. This was in like the early 80s, and it's really creative. It's not really experimental, but it's very like there's a lot of ideas, a lot
Thank
of
you,
really
Rachel.
interesting
Thanks
stuff
for
in there.
saying so.
Oh my God, no, it's really. I was gonna say ahead of its time, but it was really
Probably.
creative, actually, and it didn't really have boundaries like this is going to be rock and we're going to be hitting the top 40 or any of that crap. It was just creative, really nice.
What kind of styles do you like to play, Rachel?
Uh, I like jazz. I like playing jazz, but I like melodic jazz. I like the kind of older school of popular music of the teens kind of jazz. I mean, I like to play the bossa nova type stuff as well. Although I wouldn't say that I'm an expert on that, but I do like the jazz manouche style a lot, and I do like the American songbook, so to speak. I like that style of jazz. I like playing that a lot, and I love playing klezmer music, and I like playing old time up to a point. I do that. I'm more of a social old time player. We play a lot of farmers markets. We get out there and we just sit there for hours and hours. And you know what? If there's an obnoxious person or there's too big a crowd and they want you to move away, people out of the way, we just start playing klezmer music. And everyone just kind of goes,
Oh, the accordion,
okay,
run!
run. Oh, no. And some people really appreciate it. I'm pretty, like, I like playing, bass is what I'm best at. But it takes a lot of strength and a lot of energy to play the bass. And sometimes I don't know how much more I can really put out, to be honest with you. It's labor intensive. And when you look at music historically and you look back at what people have done and the conditions that they have done it in, like the older jazz players, the trad jazz players, and you just think, oh my God, these guys were like unamplified and they're like wailing away for hours and
Yeah.
hours, and that's tough. And you think, I don't know if I can live up to that. That's how I feel anyway. But I do love it. I love trad jazz, actually. Connie and me went to Denmark with a band, and Connie played the washboard. Connie was the washboard star of Denmark. You
Yeah.
wouldn't believe it.
Oh my God.
That was a lot of fun. That was a lot of fun. I don't know how I got that gig,
Oh, I got you that gig. You know how you got that gig. Come on.
but I just wanted to say, back on the subject of traditional music, I think when you really delve into a traditional form and absorb as much as you can, it's a bit like being a sponge, and eventually the sponge is saturated, and then it starts to drip.
Whoa.
Oh, cool.
And that's I think what I have, one thing that I have really enjoyed from traditional music is eventually you can express yourself in that form.
I want to add something to your subject of traditional music, though, and absorbing it like a sponge, and then finally you're saturated and it starts to come out again. And I think that's a very, very good metaphor, actually. And I think that some people can play traditional music for a long time, and after a while you begin to really be able to take that and tell a story with it. It's kind of it's not really quantifiable, that process of really taking a tune and really making it personal and really telling a story with it, rather than just I'm playing to this tune now. You can, it has a narrative flow somehow. It builds. It's hard to say exactly why that happens or how. It's very interesting though.
I think part of it is putting your own personality
Yeah,
on
I
a
agree.
piece of music, and you can hear musicians play, or you can be in a situation where you're playing with someone in a jam or something, and they're executing their part perfectly, but somehow it puts you on edge or something, and you're not quite comfortable with it. Maybe with the way a drummer plays the drums, and it's just like, oh yeah, I mean, their time is great, but there's something wrong with the feel, and we talk about feel in music.
Yeah.
And
true.
what is that exactly? Well, it's just maybe just a way of someone expressing themselves. It's not something that you can really identify as, well, what is it? What's feel?
It's hard to say.
It's hard to say, but
I don't know. I want to actually make a point, which is
Okay.
that my creative expression and my creativity has greatly changed from my younger days to my, let's say, my more mature days here. When I was a younger musician, when I was in my teens, my 20s, even my 30s, it was really like more purely creative. It wasn't really driven by pure influences so much, or other influences even from outside, other kinds of music, anything. Literally, when we were in Vancouver and we played in bands there, that was in isolation. That was really created in isolation. It was very interesting, actually. That music, the kind of music we used to play when we was kids. Remember, Connie?
you're talking about the post-punk stuff?
Yeah, I'm talking about that and how that was really created almost in a vacuum. It's like, what is this? It was very, very interesting. And then as I moved here, it became more like, what are other people doing? And I like that. I wouldn't mind checking that out and learning how to do that. That's a whole different kind of curve.
It's too late. That's just suicide. Suicide. Might as well take some cyanide. You don't have to be dead to commit suicide. You don't have to be dead to commit suicide. You don't have to be dead to commit suicide. You don't have to be dead to commit suicide.
What influenced your move to Toronto?
Just basically wanting to get into a bigger peer group, a bigger musical environment for me. A bit more happening here.
Yeah. Well, like you're from BC, so like what made you come here?
Well, we came here together.
Yeah.
Yeah. Vancouver at the time was hard to find work. Toronto just had a lot more opportunities. I worked as a sound technician, as a live sound technician for many years, and it was really hard to find work in Vancouver. And when we moved to Toronto, I just had instant work
Oh, wow.
and
Cool.
worked every day for years, it seems like, in the 80s
And the 90s.
and the 90s.
And the millennium, after the millennium. Don't forget that. It's 2022 now, you know.
Wait, what?
I know, it's terrible.
What was Toronto's music scene like when you guys moved here? Like, where was the first, like I know you played the Cameron House in the early 80s, you mentioned that. But when you moved here, did you meet like a group of musicians? Like, how did you guys get yourselves into the scene?
Good question. You know, we played with Lillian Allen, who's a dub poet. We played with her. We used to do a lot of, we were like, she had a special group of people, women, that played at women's festivals in the U.S. So we were the rhythm
We were
section.
in the rhythm
in that.
section.
Cool.
The scene in Toronto in the 80s was very centered in this neighborhood, Queen
Yeah,
West.
very much so.
Between the Cameron House, the Rivoli,
Bamboo.
the Bamboo,
Yeah. The Horseshoe Tavern.
the Horseshoe. You didn't have to go any farther than that.
In fact, it was a wasteland.
What do you mean?
Like
Past
anywhere outside there,
Bathurst,
yeah.
it was like, oh no, what's
Yeah.
that? You know, people will beat me up or whatever, right?
Have you guys played across the country?
Yeah,
Many
Yeah.
times, but not for a long time.
Okay.
yeah.
Right,
We played
yes.
in a band, a world beat band called Mother Tongue in the 90s, and we played a lot of folk festivals. And yeah.
And before you moved to Toronto, you'd played a couple gigs here. Was there something about playing? Like you said, you played the Cameron House in the early '80s.
Yes, it's true.
Like, were there things about playing here that had really grabbed at you? So when you made the decision to move here, it was an easy one.
Work.
When we visited the Cameron House in the 80s, when we were here for the show that we were playing in Toronto and in New York, Herb Tukey, who is one of the owners of the Cameron House at the time, kind of said to us, anything that you guys want to do when you're here, come to the Cameron House. You can do anything you want here. They were so welcoming. It was a bit like this place, incredibly community-minded and welcoming, which is not always what you encounter in a bar, in a nightclub. Sometimes it's really just about the bottom line.
Yeah.
But for the Cameron House especially and Drom here, it's like it's more about community building, and so that's really important, and it makes musicians feel really welcome, and that you're more than just like, oh, you're going to sell 2.2 beers per person, and the last time you were here you only sold 1.8 beers per person, so no, you're not coming back.
God, really?
Yeah, there was actually
yeah.
a club in Toronto that when we spoke with the guy on the phone, when I talked to the guy on the phone, that's how he put it when I said, can we do another gig? And I think he got out his book and his calculator, and he said, no, you're not coming back.
That is a really weird way of looking at live music, and like the
Are you
culture.
really surprised, Rashid, or are
Oh
you just
no,
pretending?
I'm not surprised, but I'm still disheartened, I guess. Because you walk into a venue and you get hit with something, and then you feel something. Like somewhere like here, somewhere like the Cameron House, you feel something different. And I just, yeah, it's sad when you hear that people can't quite understand that. Was Toronto more open for musicians in the late 80s and 90s? Were there more opportunities?
Definitely.
Yeah. Like more venues?
There was a lot more venues. I think things have really just the bureaucracy and the economic times and all of the competition from other stuff has really made a dent in live music venues. Like, not even to speak of COVID. Like, that's not even.
Like COVID was a whole other
Yeah,
thing.
even before that, it was a struggle for people just because of the gentrification and
Right.
the stakes are very, very high. You know, it's tough. It's tough out there, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because like you guys have been playing music in this city for decades, actually, like successfully. So in a sense, is it harder to be a musician today than it was 30 years ago?
I'm not sure.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know what it's like. I think that for people, I don't know. Like I don't know what people's aspirations are. Like as a younger person that's playing music, like people go to music school and they come out and they're really good players,
Yeah.
and then you can get work doing whatever, teaching, musical theater, transcriptions, soundtracks, whatever, all of that whole school of stuff. But if you're like a folk musician or a pop musician, like popular music, and you're just trying to get over somehow and make money by being a huge star of some sort, like, I don't know. It's a mystery to me. I just
Yeah.
go along from day to day, man. Like, seriously.
How
I'm
would you
just
how would you
grateful for any opportunity.
how would you define success as a musician? Like both for yourself and I guess in general as well.
I just, like, I'm very, very happy when I get to play at Drom Taberna or anywhere else.
Uh,
And they treat you okay. And both my friends come.
Success, well, you know, I think I have to, like, when you talk about success as a musician, music it's a never ending, and it's limitless. There's no end to how much you can learn and how much you can improve and how much, where you can go with music. So for me, it's like, as long as I'm improving and I feel like I'm making gains and I'm able to express myself more, and then that's success. I am being successful in my own eyes. I'm not really looking too much for approval from the outside world, you know.
That's beautiful.
That's interesting. I had no idea.
No? What's success for you?
It's very poetic.
It's tough. Actually, it's interesting when you factor in the performance aspect. It's very difficult to pull off a performance that is really completely satisfying. Like, that everything went well. Everything went well. We played everything well. There was people there. You know, the sound was good. Like, there's so many factors. It's really, just to have a decent gig, that is successful to me. That's really amazing. And then it's so true what you said, Connie, about music basically being an open-ended subject. For me, I'll never, ever get to the end of it. It's like, even if I was more disciplined and I practiced a lot more, I still don't think I'd be able to achieve what I want, really. But it's fun trying.
That's really exciting, isn't it?
It's a little too exciting.
Right? No, that's a beautiful thing.
At least when you write a book, it's finished.
Yeah, but then you have another idea for another one.
Yeah, it's true.
It never ends.
Then you have to get people to read it.
It's about getting it out there. If two people read it, I win. But you know, there's always something else to write about. There's always something else to learn about. There's always something new, and like I find that thrilling and exciting. And hearing you guys speak, like you're still thrilled and excited by something you discovered when you were teenagers. It's so cool.
Yeah.
And really inspiring. Like to be like honestly very inspiring.
There's a lot of psychic burdens that come with it, though. It's funny because you really are thinking, shouldn't I have succeeded at this by now, or shouldn't I have gotten further than this? Shouldn't I be better than I am? Like I go through that a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But as you were saying, your definition of success is just a gig.
To have a decent time.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. So like I think we all have those notions in our head of, well, we could be something, but you've managed to tie that into, no, like just a gig that goes well.
Yeah.
My friends show up. I'm happy. And you're just like, give me the music, any music. I will. Like, I'm a sponge that wants to learn, and I will continually learn. It's exciting.
Yeah. Interesting.
You know, there's a lot of satisfaction to be gained from pleasing the audience.
Yeah.
And I'm more comfortable in a venue performing where there's a dialogue with the audience. The soft seaters kind of make me uncomfortable. Mm-hmm. When there's nothing, you don't hear anything, you can't see because of the lighting, and you're on stage, you kind of feel like it's a microscope.
Right.
And in a nightclub or a bar where there's people clinking glasses and dancing and talking and enjoying themselves, and it's more comfortable because you're getting something back and you're seeing a smile on someone's face, or that's really great. You know, it's more of a, I don't know, a level playing field. You don't feel so much like I'm on stage and you're out there, you know.
It's symbiosis.
Yeah.
Yeah, symbiosis, exactly.
Symbiosis.
Where, without the energy of the audience, like the energy of the audience gives you the energy to give back.
They give back.
And it's like a dance. It's like you're dancing with everyone in spaces that allow that to happen, of which we have fewer and fewer.
No kidding.
Which is a sign of the times.